Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. Whether you are prepping for a high-stakes boardroom negotiation or trying to understand game theory or, you just appreciate a brilliantly underhanded strategy, you are going to want to hear this.
Oh, absolutely. This one is, it's really something else.
Yeah. Today, we are looking at a fascinating strategy document titled Modern Preemption at Bridge.docx. And even if you have never picked up a deck of cards in your life, stick around because today is entirely about the science of weaponizing your own weakness.
Right. It's universally applicable, really.
Exactly. I mean, think about playing a traditional game of bridge, like carefully building a custom house. You and your partner are the architects. You lay a solid foundation, you consult the blueprints, and you communicate clearly about where, like, the load-bearing walls are going to go. It is orderly, right? It is precise.
Yeah, the traditional approach is fundamentally a constructive process. You are sharing this really nuanced information back and forth with your partner to find the absolute perfect mathematical fit for your combined cards.
Right.
But the strategy document we are analyzing today completely dismantles that approach. I mean, instead of carefully building a house, this modern strategy is the equivalent of sprinting onto the opponent's construction site and just throwing a smoke bomb right into the middle of it.
Oh, wow.
Just total chaos.
Exactly. You do it before they can even unroll their blueprints.
So today's mission for this deep dive is to explore this concept of wild preemption. We're going to discover how aggressive, mathematically calculated chaos can completely destroy an opponent's strategy before it even begins.
Yeah, because usually, you think you need the best cards to win any game.
Right, obviously.
But this document outlines how to win by making the game literally unplayable for the people who actually hold the superior hand.
It's so wild. So
Okay.
to understand how to effectively deploy that smoke bomb, we first have to examine the underlying philosophy. Like, why would anyone ever want to bid when their hand is objectively terrible?
Right, because when you look at your cards and realize you were holding absolute garbage, the natural human instinct is to hide. Yeah, you just want to sink into your chair.
Exactly. You want to stay quiet and let the players with the big hands fight it out. But the document argues for the exact opposite approach.
Right. When it is immediately clear that the opponents have what the author calls the rich line, meaning they hold the powerful cards, your goal instantly shifts.
Right. You're no longer trying to win the contract. Your sole objective is to steal their oxygen.
And in bridge, oxygen is bidding space.
Yes. Bidding space is everything.
To put this in perspective for those of you who aren't spending your weekends at card tournaments, high-level bridge is basically an incredibly intricate, coded conversation. Players use the height of their bids to tell their partners exactly what cards they hold.
Yeah. And the author provides a perfect example of this delicate communication by looking at trial bids.
Oh, right.
Imagine the bidding goes one spade, then two spades, and then suddenly someone bids three clubs. That three-club bid isn't random.
It's not them saying they want clubs to be the trump suit, right?
Exactly. It is a highly specific, targeted question. It's one partner asking the other, hey, I have a weakness in the club suit. If you have the ace or king to cover my weakness, we have enough power to go for the win.
And if you don't, we need to stop right here.
You nailed it. It is a polite, precise interrogation.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because picture what happens if, right before that polite conversation can start, you throw the smoke bomb. You drop a massive, aggressive barrage bid of 3 diamonds.
Right. And suddenly the strong hands don't have the physical room on the bidding ladder to ask those delicate questions. The space is just gone.
Assessing their fit becomes a complete guessing game. But, isn't it incredibly risky to bid with weak hands, especially in what they call the red zone?
Oh, it's terrifying. The document highlights the incredibly painful reality of this strategy, which is the risk of paying an 1,100-point penalty.
Right, 1,100 points.
Yeah. In the scoring system of bridge, getting penalized 1,100 points means you didn't just lose the hand, you got mathematically obliterated. And this happens especially when your team is vulnerable. If you bid aggressively with weak cards while vulnerable and fail, the penalty multipliers are absolute murder.
It is the kind of massive disaster that makes a player want to quit the game entirely.
Truly. But the author completely acknowledges that trauma. This is where they introduce the concept of becoming Dr. Strangebridge.
Huh. I love that name.
Right. You have to learn to stop worrying and love the 1100s. We suffer from this severe psychological bias when we evaluate risk.
As humans, we remember the spectacular crashes.
Exactly. We remember losing 14 international match points. which, for context, is a massive game-losing swing in tournament play.
Yeah, you will lie awake at 3 in the morning agonizing over that -14 disaster.
Right. But what goes completely unnoticed by our brains are the little paper cuts we inflict on our opponents. The
Ah.
document points out that between one disaster and the next, a player utilizing this strategy likely had 6 or 7 hands where they gained 5 points simply by constantly disrupting the opponents.
So it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. And forcing them into suboptimal contracts.
The document also brings up a really fascinating paradox regarding that risk. It states that the risk of a heavy penalty actually decreases if you and your partner do not have a good fit in the suit you preempted with.
Yes.
But on the surface, that feels totally backward. I mean, if I am faking strength in diamonds and my partner has 0 diamonds to back me up, shouldn't we get crushed by the opponents?
You would think so, but that assumption ignores the core mechanism of the strategy. If you and your partner do not hold the cards in that diamond suit, the opponents must be holding them.
Right, the mat demands it.
Imagine the sheer paralysis of sitting there with a handful of fantastic diamond cards, and the opponent across the table just confidently shouted, 3 diamonds.
It short-circuits their brain.
It really does.
Hmm.
They assume you must have a freakishly long suit, so they become terrified of stepping on what they perceive to be your territory.
So they will frequently pass out of sheer confusion, holding the very cards that could have easily destroyed your wild bid.
Exactly. The mere act of taking up space weaponizes their own cards against them.
So if we are fully embracing this chaos, we need to define what exactly constitutes a wild preempt versus a standard aggressive play. Because players have been preempting in bridge for decades.
Right, the concept itself isn't new, but the meta of the game has shifted fundamentally in recent years.
The document traces a historical evolution, right?
Yeah, from treating the opening bid as a constructive tool, putting down the foundation for that house, to viewing it purely as a destructive weapon. The author points to the 2019 World Championships in Wuhan as the definitive tipping point.
Oh, wow. What happened there?
At that tournament, almost all the top-tier international pairs had abandoned traditional preempts in favor of this very weak 2-level opening bid strategy.
Let's contrast the old guard with this new Wuhan style. The traditional beginner rules dictate that to make a 2-level preempt, you need real substance. You need 6 to 11 high card points.
Right, and for our non-bridge playing listeners, an ace is mathematically worth 4 points, a king is 3, a queen is 2, and a jack is 1.
So having 11 points means you have some genuine firepower.
Exactly. You also needed a solid 6-card suit, usually containing 2 major honors, like the king and the queen. You had to be able to back up your talk.
But the wild rules torch that traditional textbook.
They completely torch it. Under this modern strategy, your high card point strength is slashed drastically to a maximum of 6 or 7 points.
So you are stepping onto the battlefield armed with maybe a king, a queen, and a handful of 2s and 3s. It is practically nothing.
Nothing at all. You also drop the length requirements. At the 2 level, you only need a 5-card suit. At the 3 level, a 6-card suit. You are acting much earlier in the auction with significantly less material.
What's really wild is that the document is incredibly specific about the positional requirement for deploying this tactic. You don't just throw a smoke bomb whenever you feel like it.
What's fascinating here is the logic of position. The ideal time to strike is in the first position, meaning you are the very first person to speak at the table, or a second position if the opponent already opened the bidding.
And the reasoning comes down to the pure probability distribution of a deck of cards, right?
Exactly. If you look at your hand in the first position and you see a maximum of 6 points, what is the statistical reality of the remaining 34 points in the deck?
The opponents are overwhelmingly likely to hold the vast majority of the power.
Yes. You know, with absolute mathematical certainty that they are about to have a very productive, complex conversation, you must launch the preempt before they even pick up the phone.
You are severing the phone lines, but wait, that brings up a glaring issue. You have also trapped your own partner in the exact same smoke cloud.
Oh, yeah.
You've just thrown out a wild 6-point bid. Your partner is sitting across the table, completely blind to whether you actually have a decent hand or if you were just playing Dr. Strange bridge.
Yeah.
How on earth do they navigate that situation?
Well, the rules for the partner have to be incredibly rigid, otherwise the team will bid themselves right off a cliff.
Right.
The document outlines a strict survival guide. Let's say the partner lacks support, meaning they only have 2 or 3 cards in your chosen suit, but they have a strong hand overall.
What do they do?
They are instructed to evaluate their hand as if it is missing an entire ace. they must immediately downgrade their own strength.
Because they have to assume you bring absolutely nothing to the table except sheer annoyance.
Exactly. Now, if the partner does have long support, ensuring the two of you have a combined 10 cards in that suit, the strategy branches out.
Okay, how so?
If they're weak, they can risk a sacrifice bid, essentially jumping on the grenade to block the opponents even higher up the ladder. If they're incredibly strong, they might actually push to win the game.
But what about the middle ground? The document spends a significant amount of time on that danger. What happens when the partner has a mediocre hand? They aren't weak enough to sacrifice, but they aren't strong enough to win the game.
That middle ground is where the golden rule of wild preempts comes into play. The author states emphatically that any support bid made to a wild preempt is absolutely a no anymore bid command.
A no anymore bid command.
Yes, it is a hard, impenetrable ceiling.
It's like setting off a flare in the middle of the night. When your partner supports your wild bid, they aren't telling you to keep advancing into enemy territory. They're just making the flare brighter to blind the opponents even more.
Exactly. You have to stay perfectly still. You cannot take that support as an invitation to keep climbing the bidding ladder because you will bankrupt your team.
The document also dives deep into how players try to formalize this concept of weakness. I mean, there are highly complex bidding systems utilized around the world, right?
Oh yeah, systems like the two-diamond multicolor, the Mutterberg, and the Polish Club, these are sophisticated coded systems designed to convey very specific types of weak or multi-way hands to a partner.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The author argues that using those fancy systems is actually a strategic mistake.
Yeah, that surprised a lot of people.
Right. Just pretending to have a 6-card suit and opening a blunt, straightforward 2 major bid is often far more destructive. They argue that precision is actually a curse if you aren't trying to win the contract.
Because if your goal is to build the house, you absolutely need an exact blueprint. But if your goal is destruction, providing the opponents with a precise, mathematically solvable map of your complex system actually hands them the tools to defeat you.
That makes so much sense.
The author notes that top-tier players defend beautifully against the two-diamond multicolor because they understand all of its permutations. It is a puzzle they know how to solve.
But a dumb, blunt, weak 2 major bid offers no clues.
Right. It just takes up physical space on the bidding track. Leaving the opponents entirely in the dark about exactly how weak you are is your greatest weapon.
Wow. Okay, so we've established that a smoke bomb at the start of the game is incredibly annoying. But the document points out that if you pull this same exact tactic later in the bidding, scaling up to the 4 or 5 level, it stops being a smoke bomb and turns into a landmine.
Oh, the math completely changes and the air gets very thin up there. Bidding against a 4-level preempt requires a total recalibration of your strategy.
Let's look at the beginner rule of thumb for doubles. Traditionally, if an opponent bids up to 4 hearts and you throw down a double card, it's treated as a takeout bid.
Right. You are essentially telling your partner, I have a great hand, please pick a different suit for us to play.
And anything beyond that 4-heart level is strictly a penalty double, meaning you are telling your partner, leave them in this contract, I can destroy them, and we will take the penalty points.
But the author says that clean dividing line is way too simplistic for this modern, chaotic style. Because of these wild preempts, you will frequently find yourself holding a monster of a hand, facing an opponent's 4-level preempt, and you have no choice but to double.
Because you can't just sit in silence with fantastic cards.
Exactly. So the modern contingency plan dictates that whoever doubles a 4-heart bid has to be fully prepared for their partner to bid spades. You must have a built-in backup parachute.
The author actually provides 3 crucial guidelines for surviving this high-altitude warfare. The 5 level belongs to the opponents. Don't bid 5 over 5. And don't be the last to decide.
Those are lifesavers. When both teams are aggressively pushed to the 5 level, the mathematical margin for error is microscopic. Statistically, the team that decides to step back and play defense, forcing the other team to actually try and fulfill that massive 5-level contract, ends up winning the exchange.
It's a high-stakes game of chicken, and the winner is the one who taps the brakes first.
Yes, beautifully put.
Which ties perfectly into this brilliant literary reference the source makes. They quote Homer, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts."
The Trojan horse.
Exactly. In bridge terms, if the opponents suddenly offer you a sacrifice, what the document calls a red rescue, you need to be terrified.
Yeah, a red rescue is when they bid high while they are in an unfavorable, highly penalized vulnerability.
You should assume they know exactly what they're doing. They aren't handing you free points out of the goodness of their hearts. They are laying a trap, hoping you get greedy and bid over them.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that trap is most evident in the most brutal scenario in the entire game, the major versus major dilemma.
Oh, right.
This happens when one side is aggressively bidding hearts and the other side is aggressively bidding spades. It is agonizing because both sides usually have a massive, legitimate fit in the respective suits.
So if both sides can mathematically win 10 tricks, the pair holding hearts is forced into a blind guess about whether to push to 11 tricks at the 5 level.
Right. But consider what happens if the bidding has been wild, the smoke is thick, and neither side can actually make their high-level contract.
They both crash and burn.
That is where the trap springs. In that specific scenario, the pair that steps back and chooses defense actually takes the spoils. It proves a fundamental truth highlighted by the author. Defense is the absolute hardest part of bridge.
Because when you force opponents to make these high-level decisions while totally deprived of reliable information, they will frequently guess wrong.
Exactly. They will attack when they should defend or defend when they should attack.
Which brings us to the actual math of guessing. We've talked conceptually about making life hard, but the document breaks down the exact mechanics of how denying space mathematically forces human error, and it relies heavily on something called the law of total tricks.
Yes, the law of total tricks is a mathematical guideline stating that bidding at the 3 level is relatively safe if your team holds a combined 9 cards in the trump suit alongside an unbalanced hand.
And applying that law aggressively is what changes the entire dynamic at the table.
Oh, completely.
Let's walk through the specific proof the document provides, because this is where the genius of the strategy really clicks into place. Imagine you are sitting in the south position. You look at your cards. You have 4 hearts, a single card in another suit, and a measly 5 high card points.
So again, you're holding practically nothing.
Right. Your partner, sitting north, opens the bidding with 1 heart. The opponent to your right, east, bids 1 spade. Now the spotlight is on you.
The document lays out the diverging paths here. If you play it safe, behaving like a traditional textbook player, you just support your partner with a gentle 2-heart bid.
But look at what that does for the opponent sitting on your left, West. You have left them a massive amount of room on the bidding ladder.
You really have. West suddenly has 4 distinct, highly nuanced bids they can use to describe their hand perfectly to their partner, East. They can bid 2 spades, 3 spades, use a specialized Q bid, or bid to no trump.
Normally, Wes uses those 4 different bids as a highly detailed vocabulary. They can use them to say, I have exactly 12 points in good spades, or I have 15 points in average spades. It's a clean, well-lit construction site for them.
Yep.
So what does this all mean? Well, if you look at your 5 points and your 4 hearts and you apply the law of total tricks, you can jump straight over that polite conversation and drop a 3-heart preempt. This is where the smoke bomb detonates.
Boom.
You have just covered West's blueprint in thick ink.
And the impact on West is devastating. All those nuanced bids are instantly wiped off the table. They are stripped down to just 1 or 2 brute force options. They are forced to just bid 3 spades or 4 spades.
You've effectively taped West's mouth shut. They are reduced to just grunting spades at the 3 level.
Yeah, and think about what that does to their partner, East. East is sitting there hearing this grunt, and they have absolutely no idea if West is incredibly strong or if they're just desperately trying to keep the auction alive with marginal cards.
The communication chain is completely severed.
It's gone. East is forced to make the final, critical decision for their team based on 0 reliable data, which perfectly encapsulates the ultimate philosophy of this entire document.
What was that summary line they used?
The more often they have to guess, the more often they will be wrong.
Wow. It is a brilliant paradigm shift. To summarize the core journey of this deep dive today, we've learned that in modern bridge, playing nice and waiting for a good hand is a mathematically losing strategy.
Unfortunately for the traditionalists, yeah.
By embracing the wild preempt, by making peace with the occasional 1,100-point penalty disaster, and relentlessly stripping away the opponent's bidding space, you gain a massive, almost invisible strategic advantage.
It raises a profound question about the nature of competition, honestly, whether you are at the card table or in a boardroom.
How do you mean?
Well, if the effectiveness of wild preemption relies entirely on forcing errors through information deprivation, how much of winning a high-level game actually depends on your own constructive skill?
No, that's a great point.
Does true mastery lie in perfectly executing your own grand plans, or does it lie in the psychological chaos you can inflict on the person sitting across from you, forcing them to defeat themselves?
That is something to mull over the next time you sit down at the table. Are you there to build a house, or are you there to throw the smoke bomb? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the chaotic, brilliant world of modern preemption. We highly encourage you to embrace your inner Doctor Strange bridge the next time you face a superior opponent. They won't know what hit them.